Welcome back. And if you heard the music and the intro, I'm pretty sure you get the idea of what this video is going to be about. We are going to do a tribute video to the late Eddie Van Halen. You know, obviously a brilliant guitar player. We don't do music a lot. I understand it's not really your strongest suit. You know, we are going to try to start diving into a little bit. It's not that he's against music, no. It's just something that movies are a little bit below music. I love music. Movies are right behind it. And obviously it's flip-flop for you. That's why we do a lot of movies, which is fine. I just felt it was important. It's important to me, and that we did kind of a tribute thing to Eddie Van Halen because just to put things in perspective here a little bit, I was born in '84. Obviously, Van Halen's history goes back to 75, 76, so I missed all the David Lee Roth era stuff. When I was introduced to Van Halen was just Sammy Hagar, I remember listening to the 5150 album with my parents. They had a VHS. It was called Live Without a Net. It was Sammy Hagar's first tour with Van Halen. That's what I was introduced to Van Halen, and I was instantly hooked. I loved him. I was just madly in love with him. And the first time that I saw him was in 91. I was 7 years old. I remember the day like it was yesterday. My dad took me to school like everything was fine. And then it wasn't, I swear to God, it wasn't like 2 hours later, all of a sudden they're calling me to the office. In the back of my mind, I was a little worried because my mom had gallbladder surgery. And I'm like, is there something wrong? Do we need to get to the hospital? He's got a grin on his face when I'm walking in the office, so I know it's not serious. And we walk out, we're getting in the truck, and I said, what's going on, Dad? And he said, we're going to that free Van Halen show. It was a free show down at the West End. 7 years old. Van Halen. And I remember, what I remember most was the crowd. It was a pretty heavy crowd. And we were standing up kind of against like a concrete wall that was maybe 4 feet high, and then it had rails on it. Well, the crowd started to get a little wild, so my dad was holding on to it like this with his butt out to shield me from, the crowd coming. And then at one point, he had me kind of sitting up on it just to avoid the crowd. Well, about an hour into it, this lady, it was a bar there. She was inside there. She said, you want me standing on a bar stool? So I was standing on the bar stool. Actually, we were pretty close, and in my 7-year-old mind, I could have sworn Sammy waved at me, but that's probably not what happened. But I remember being mesmerized by the band. I mean, 7 years old, you have this amazing sound coming at you. It's amazing. And the thing I also remember too was once the concert was over, I turned and my dad wasn't there anymore. I started to freak out, and 5-10 minutes goes by and he finally jumps the wall and gets me, and we get out of there. Come to find out, he had needed to use the restroom. Come back, the cops wouldn't let him in.
Oh, no.
And he basically told the cops, he said, you can arrest me later, but I'm going to get my son. And one of the cops said, go get your son and come back. But saw them, and then, what was that, December of 91. In January of 92, they came back, and we went again. And I remember a little bit about that show. Sadly, though, I fell asleep. I mean, the free show was an hour and a half, and in today's standards, an hour and a half is a pretty solid set. Not in the 90s, and I'm sure in the 80s too, Van Halen played for over 2 hours, 2.5 hours. They would play. Everybody had a solo. You had a drum solo, bass solo, guitar solo. Sammy did a little solo. So when we went to Reunion Arena, I was completely blown away. This was a much longer set. My favorite song at the time was Top of the World. They played that their last song while I fell asleep. I remember waking up, and my dad was carrying me back. This was at Reunion Arena, and they had that big above-ground parking garage. I think it's still standing. I know Reunion Arena's gone. But I remember I could see it, and I'm like, what happened? And he's like, well, the concert's over. You fell asleep. Oh, man. So I vowed I would never do that again. But so 7, 8 years old, Van Halen is my world. Now, in my house, we did listen to other stuff like Kiss and AC/DC and all these other 80s hair bands, but Van Halen seemed to always be the front ground. And I have to say, as a kid, I couldn't stand David Lee Roth. I just couldn't stand him.
Who was David Lee Roth compared to Eddie Van Halen?
David Lee Roth was the lead singer.
I thought Eddie Van
Halen was the lead guitarist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
now I understand. Okay.
You had when the band first started, it was, and I'm not going way back to their demo days or whatever. First album, David Lee Roth, lead singer, Eddie Van Halen, lead guitar, Michael Anthony, the bass player, Alex Van Halen, the drummer. Eddie and Alex, brothers. Yeah, they were brothers.
Okay.
So, I didn't like David Lee Roth. I couldn't stand him when I was a kid.
The voice?
The voice, just because there's such a dividing line, almost like in today's politics. There is such a dividing line with Van Halen fans. You either are a Roth era fan or a Sammy Hagar fan. There are very few out there that love them both. I'm 35 now. I respect what he's done. The first 4 albums with David Lee Roth are iconic. They are. But still, personally to me, and I've watched videos on YouTube of their live performances, he is not, to me, it's not a frontman that I like. Personally, and it's not any list, it's not the greatest. I understand that. This is my personal views on it. I think Sammy Hagar is probably the greatest frontman for me. If we were doing a top list of frontmen, he would be there. Now, is he the greatest as far as showmanship and this and that? No, that's a different list. This is my personal beliefs on it. But at that time, that's all it was. I had a giant poster they got me in my room with Van Halen. So I was hooked on the band. And the older you get, the more you get incremented into how music works, the guitar solos, the riffs, the music lyrics. I was just hooked. They came back in 93. I saw them again. At that time I was 9 years old. So I mean, basically and I went to other concerts too, but Van Halen was like anytime Van Halen came to town, we went. In 95, they had another album came out. We saw them twice. My world came crashing down in 96 when Hagar left the band.
Okay.
Hagar left, got fired, whatever. This is kind of when I got sour on Eddie Van Halen. I really did, because it's like, you couldn't get along with David Lee Roth. You can't get along with Sammy Hagar. They replaced him with Gary Cherone, who sounded a lot like Sammy Hagar, in my opinion. I didn't like Van Halen 3 at all. That was the name of the album. They call it Van Halen 3. So I remember my parents went, and my dad told me, it was all right, but I didn't buy into it. I saw Sammy on his solo career. I saw him in like 97, I think it was. I saw him again in 2004. So, like I said, I'm a big Hagar fan. 2004 was called it's 2006, called The Other Half. It was him and Michael Anthony went on tour together. But I was just sour on it. And I know they had a reunion with Sammy, and I was so gung-ho about wanting to go. The tickets were so expensive. Even back in like 2003, they were like, for 4 tickets, it was like $400.
Good night.
I scraped up enough money for me sacking groceries to pay for half of it, but my dad he wouldn't pay for it. Yeah, so I didn't get to see him. So that's kind of where I was. But as the older I've gotten, again, like I said, I respect what David Lee Roth did to the band. To me, it's his own doing that he left the band and he went down. Van Halen continued to go up with Sammy. But I've seen Sammy Hagar with solo Chickenfoot. Now he's with this thing called The Circle. I almost went to see Van Halen in 2012. Almost did, but decided not to. And I know they came back in 2015. I was more focused on trying to see Rush's final tour, but didn't have. I mean, I had the money, but didn't. Rumors started circulating in 2018 that they had contacted Michael Anthony to rejoin Van Halen because they had kicked him out because they were mad because he was friends with Sammy.
Okay.
And basically, I heard that they were going to go on this big tour, the original 4 lineup, and I said, you know what? That is something I need to do. I need to see Eddie Van Halen one more time. I need to see the original 4 together. Even though I'm not a big David Lee Roth fan, I'm going to go see him. And unfortunately, you heard all this news that it was canceled, possibly health reasons. Nothing confirmed came out. And then, of course, we're living in a world, where there's a pandemic going on, so nobody's going on tour. So in my mind, even a month ago, I was like, you know what? Once this hopefully goes away,
Right.
next year there'll be a big announcement.
Yeah.
Maybe with Sammy, that would be great, or with Dave, or with both of them, that would be iconic. And then, of course, we got the tragic news last Tuesday that he had passed away from throat cancer. And it rocked me because it's kind of a selfish thing, but it just shows me that I'm getting older. Times are changing.
Yes.
The hourglass doesn't stop for anybody.
No.
It's going to keep going no matter what. And I think I made a comment to you several years ago. There was, talk about The Simpsons not going to be on air anymore. And I said, it's going to be a sad day when that show goes away. I don't watch it religiously. I haven't watched it in a long time. Sometimes I'll get in the mood and I'll watch a few episodes here and there. But it's the same thing, growing up and that being your whole world as a kid and wanting to be Eddie Van Halen at one point and then saying, you know what, I don't think I could be that gifted of a guitar player. Maybe I can be Sammy Hagar and I can get somebody else to be Eddie Van Halen. It did rock me. So that's why I wanted to kind of share, my side of it where I kind of grew up, and as I've gotten older and more perspective on it. But no, it was a sad day, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family, obviously to his bandmates. It brought a tear to my eye to find out that Sammy and him had reconnected. They hadn't talked since 2004, and Sammy had tried to mend that bridge, no avail. Well, he had told people after he had passed it that they had been talking since earlier this year. So I was like, well, that's great. But yeah, to the bandmates, his brother, I feel so bad for because they've been together since the beginning. Yeah. They never left. If Van Halen was anything, it was Eddie and Alex Van Halen. And then obviously his son, Wolfgang. So, thoughts and prayers go out to all of them. But yeah, to me, if I did a list right now, because that's kind of what we do on this channel, I would probably pick him as my top guitar player. And I got a lot of flack for that because I remember I was a sophomore or junior in high school and we were talking music. I was talking with a few guys and I remember their names. I won't give them their names. I'm not going to. But I said, without hesitation, they said, who do you think's the greatest guitar player? And I just blurted out Eddie Van Halen. And I got so much crap for that. Oh, just because he does the tapping and, Eddie Van Halen, huh? And then, I mean, they didn't let me live that down for months. But, it's still to this day, that's what I believe, If anybody could be half as good as him, I think he'll be all right. But no, I just, that's was my thoughts on it. Is there anything you want to add? Or you got any questions of what I said?
Well, my experience with Van Halen is very limited. A lot of it, I guess I've come to find out about from.
I do listen a lot, and I dive deep into subjects, and I did dive. That was something I dove deep into. Why did David Lee Roth leave the band, or why did they fire him? Why did Sammy leave the band, or why did they fire Sammy? So yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that very limited experience with that, and we're going to do an episode on music here very, very shortly, and we can talk more about our our tastes and stuff like that. There's a couple songs, one in particular, from the mid '90s. I remember when Sammy Hagar was headlining them. Maybe it was right before he left the band or was kicked out or whatever.
If it's the song that I'm thinking about, it was the last album before they broke up.
Okay, all right. And that one, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do or something. I remember that. I remember the video on MTV back when MTV used to do
videos, yeah. Funny side note, and I think I've told you this, but to share with our grand audience here. It's in Sammy Hagar's book, was this is when things started to go off the rails big time for the band. When they were fighting. Sammy Hagar wanted to call it "I'll Show You What Love Can Do," or something on the lines of that. But Eddie Van Halen was adamant about it, and Sammy said it doesn't make sense. And obviously, if you really break it down, it really doesn't make sense. But the lyrics do kind of fit into the song. That it really fits the song.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was the other one you liked?
I think they did the one that on the soundtrack for Twister, maybe?
Humans Being.
Yeah, that one was pretty good too.
I like it.
Pretty good too.
That subsequently broke up the band.
Really?
Yeah, because Sammy's wife at the time was going to have their first child together, and they wanted to have it in Hawaii. That's something his wife wanted to do. Okay. He's in Hawaii. She's like hours, could be minutes away from birth. And Eddie calls him and says, we got to do this song for the movie. And he said, listen, I can't. Well, if you don't show up here, I'll assume you quit the band.
Gracious.
So he had to leave his pregnant wife to go and
blame it on Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
No, maybe.
Well, they were supposed to do 2 songs because the other one is just called like Respect the Wind, and it's just kind of an instrumental.
Yeah.
But, you know, Sammy's point, and again, I know I'm biased because, again, I said he was my favorite. He was like, why are we going to do a soundtrack that doesn't have a lot of rock songs on it? So you're punishing our fans to have to buy a soundtrack just for one song.
Right. Yeah.
You know, yeah. And again, and then spirals into that, you know, Eddie and them wanted to do a greatest hits, and Sammy's like, we're still going strong. I mean, that Balance album, you got to think that's like when grunge is shooting up to the top. Alice in Chains and Nirvana, they're spearheading all this. Chris Cornell, right. Pearl Jam.
Yes.
They held their own. That album came out as #1. He's like, guys, we're not done yet. We can still do this. We can hang. Right. And he's like, well, you know, this is a great way to make money. Well, Sammy's like, why does everything have to be about the money?
It's more the artistic side.
So that's when they got Dave back in the band. But again, that fell apart. Yeah. But no, see, if we're doing favorite songs, one of my favorite songs is Pound Cake. I love Right Now.
Okay, yeah, I know that one.
All right.
Yeah.
I do like songs on that album. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. There's another good song in there called Feelin'. You know, it's kind of a slow, and then it's got a good beat to it. Yeah. But no, let's just be honest, I love them all. And like I said, I like songs from David Lee Roth. One of my favorite songs is off of, I think it's Fair Warning. It's called Hear About It Later. So, I mean, I'm not biased anymore as far as David or Sammy. And I have a good friend of mine, Rodney. We can argue about that, you know, tooth and nail. I'm a Sammy guy. He's a Dave guy. But I think he's just a Dave guy just to argue with me. Because we always joked around if we're in the same, you know, elderly nursing home that we're going to be sitting there arguing at each other in our wheelchair, throwing stuff at us. And then somebody in the back will say, what about Gary Sharon? And then we'll start fighting with him. But, no, I just, you know, I really felt I wanted to do it. This band meant a lot to me. And we obviously know that there will be no more Van Halen. Maybe Alex will do some. Maybe he'll do some in the future with Sammy and Michael. And maybe they can do kind of a tribute thing when all this, pandemic is over. But no, I just wanted to share my kind of point of view, how I grew up and my perspective on things, you know, whether they're right or wrong. That's just what I thought. And, you know, since we'd like to do different things on this channel, you know, and I, you know, I haven't told you this, but we didn't have the channel back then. I would like to do one over Neil Peart, who passed away back in January, the drummer of Rush, because he was a big influence as well. Yeah. You know, and I was really late to the party with that, you know, but I can get into that stuff later. This is about Eddie Van Halen. Just wanted to give, you know, kind of a shout out, you know, hopefully he's, you know, resting now. He's not in pain anymore because they said his last week or so, it was pretty bad.
I can imagine.
It was pretty bad. Yeah. But, you know, is there anything else? Any questions? Or?
No, I'm...
All right. Well, that's our Eddie Van Halen tribute video. Hope you enjoy it. And as always, see you later.
Bye.